Hello and welcome to the Learn English Lab. I'm Mike, and we are diving deep today into how to describe your day in English. It's something we all do, but how can we really get good at it?
That's right. Whether you're just starting out or you've been learning for a while, there's always room to improve when it comes to talking about your day.
For sure. And to help us do just that, we have the awesome Sarah here with us today. Welcome, Sarah.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
All right, so let's jump right in, Sarah. When we talk about describing our day, is there even such a thing as a typical day? I mean, everyone's life is so different.
Yeah, you're right. Everyone's day is totally unique, but I think we can think about common activities that a lot of people do at different times of the day, morning, afternoon, evening, and night.
Okay, so it's kind of like a starting point, and then everyone can add their own personal spin.
Yeah, exactly. A framework to build on.
Got it. So how do we go from that basic framework to actually describing our own day in a way that's interesting and engaging? For example, how do I not sound boring when I talk about my day?
Well, I always tell my students to start simple. Don't feel like you have to use super complex grammar or fancy vocabulary right away.
Like I wake up, I eat, I work. Something like that?
Yeah, precisely. Something like that. It's simple, but it's a good foundation.
Okay, I can work with that. So then how do we make it more interesting?
Just add some details, So instead of just saying, I wake up, you could say, I wake up at 7 a.m.
Oh, okay. I see a small change, but it tells us so much more.
Exactly. And you can keep adding layers like what you eat for breakfast, where you work, or what's it like getting to work. All those little things that make your day your own.
This is already way better than my usual. I wake up, I work, I go back to sleep routine. But how can we make those descriptions even more interesting? Something that will really make someone want to keep listening.
Well, Mike, one thing that can really help is using phrases that connect the different parts of your day and make everything flow better. Like words such as usually, sometimes, before, and after. These give your description more detail and turn it into more of a story.
Oh, I get it. So instead of I have breakfast, I go to work, it's more natural to say after breakfast, I usually go to work.
Exactly. Using those connecting phrases paints a clearer picture and makes your description way more engaging. It's your story, so make it come alive.
Man, I'm feeling inspired, Sarah. What if we tried putting all of this together? Could you give us an example of how someone might describe their whole day using these tips?
Sure. Let me paint you a picture. My alarm goes off at 6:30, but to be honest, I usually hit the snooze button a few times. I'm not really a morning person, so around 7, I finally get out of bed and go straight to the coffee machine. After a quick breakfast of yogurt and granola, I get ready for work. My commute is only like 20 minutes, and I usually listen to podcasts on the train. Work starts at 9, and the mornings are always super busy with meetings and emails.
Wow, that's great. It feels like I'm right there with you starting the day. It's so much more interesting than just listing things off.
Right, and we're just getting started. We can keep building on this as we go through the whole day, adding details and using those connecting phrases to tell a really interesting story.
I am already thinking about how to make my own day descriptions better.
This is great stuff! But Sarah, it's one thing to hear it, it's another thing to actually do it. Any advice on how to make these tips really stick and get better at talking about my day?
You got it. Practice makes perfect, Mike. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Try writing about your day in a journal or talk to yourself out loud. You could even set a timer and see how much you can describe in like a minute or two. The more you do it, the easier it will become. I love the timer idea. A little bit of pressure can really help. Okay, so we've talked about describing our own day, but what about when we're listening to someone else talk about theirs? How can we keep the conversation going and show them that we're really listening?
That's when you want to be an active listener. Don't just sit there quietly. Ask questions. Instead of just nodding along, you could ask things like, what time do you normally wake up? Or what do you like to do in the evenings? Those questions can lead to some pretty interesting conversations.
I see what you mean. It's like you're really interested in what they have to say. Not just hearing about their day, but really getting to know them.
Exactly. It turns a simple chat into something more meaningful. And you'd be surprised at what you can learn just by asking about someone's day.
That's so true. People love to talk about themselves. So asking about their day is a great way to get to know them better. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how to describe our day and make it sound good. But are there any specific words or phrases that we should or shouldn't use?
That's a good point, Mike. One thing to think about is how formal or informal you want to be. If you're talking to a friend, you can be super casual. But if you're at like a job interview or giving a presentation, you might want to use more formal language.
Got it. So it's all about knowing who you're talking to in this situation.
Exactly. Let's say you want to talk about how tired you were when you woke up. If you're talking to your friend, you might say something like, "Man, I was so wiped out this morning." But in a more formal situation, you might say, "I was feeling rather fatigued this morning."
So like instead of saying, I rolled into work at 9, you'd say, I commenced my workday at 9 a.m.
Right. You adjust your language to fit the situation.
This has been so helpful, Sarah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm already thinking about my day in a whole new way. Not just how I talk about my day, but also how I can have better conversations with other people about their day.
That's awesome to hear, Mike. I love finding ways to make language learning practical and relatable.
Speaking of relatable, I've had some pretty funny experiences trying to describe my day in English.
Well, tell me about it. I love a good story.
Okay, so imagine this. I'm at a cafe trying to order breakfast, and I want to tell the barista that I woke up late and ran out of the house without eating anything. But instead of saying I skipped breakfast,
Yeah.
I accidentally said I jumped over breakfast.
Oh, no. I bet they were confused.
Oh, they were totally confused. But we figured it out eventually and had a good laugh about it. It's moments like those that remind me that making mistakes is all part of learning.
Absolutely. Embracing those mistakes and finding the humor in them can make the whole process a lot more fun. And honestly, those funny stories often become the most memorable learning moments.
So true. It's all about having fun with it. Well, everyone, we've talked about a lot today. From the basics of describing our day to making it sound interesting, and even how to use different levels of formality. Sarah, is there anything else we should keep in mind before we wrap up?
I think we covered all the important stuff. We talked about the framework, the vocabulary, and even some cultural things, but I want to stress one last thing. Don't be afraid to play around with language and find your own style. Describing your day is a personal thing, so have fun with it and let your personality come through.
I love that. It's not about sounding like a textbook. It's about being yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes learning a language so cool. You discover your own way of expressing yourself and connect with people in a deeper way.
Exactly. It's about sharing those experiences and connecting with each other.
Well said, Sarah. I think that's a perfect way to wrap things up. Finding your voice, connecting with others, and just having fun while you learn.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, practice makes progress. The more you use these tips, the more comfortable and fluent you'll become.
Absolutely. So to sum it up, if you want to describe your day in English with confidence, start with a simple structure, add some interesting details, and don't forget those connecting phrases. And like Sarah said, try new things, have fun, and find your own voice.
And one last tip, don't be scared of making mistakes. We all do it. It's all part of the journey.
So true. Mistakes are just chances to learn and get better. Well, everyone, that's a wrap for our deep dive into describing your day in English. We hope you found it useful and easy to understand. Sarah, thanks again for being here today and sharing your knowledge.
It was my pleasure, Mike. Always happy to talk about language and learning.
And to all our awesome listeners out there, thank you for joining us on the Learn English Lab. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more helpful lessons like this. Until next time, keep practicing and keep learning.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's about those shared experiences, and using language to connect with people.
Definitely.
Well said, Sarah. I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. Finding your voice and connecting with others and, just enjoying the whole journey of learning.
Exactly. And remember, the more you practice, the better you'll get.
That's right. So just to recap, everyone, if you want to be able to describe your day in English, start with a simple structure like we talked about, add those details to make it interesting, and don't forget those connecting phrases. And Sarah said, try new things, have fun, and find your own way of expressing yourself.
Oh, and one more thing. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It happens to everyone. It's part of learning. It really is. Mistakes are just chances to learn and grow. So we've come to the end of our deep dive into describing your day in English. I hope you found this helpful and maybe even learned a few new things. Sarah, thanks again for joining us today and sharing all your great tips.
Happy to be here, Mike. I always enjoy talking about language and learning.
And to all of our amazing listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in to the Learn English Lab. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more helpful lessons like this. Until next time, keep practicing and keep learning.